Good morning. It's not quite 9 a.m. yet. We still have people entering the webinar. So we are going to wait until right at 9 o'clock to start. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's not quite 9 o'clock, so we're going to give folks another minute or so to join us because people are still entering the room. If you would like to introduce yourself in the question and answer box, we would love to know who you are and what district you're representing. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of people here from across the state of Texas, and we are very excited to have you join us today for the TCLAS Deep Dive webinar on Decision 9 TEAP-TECH. I want to take a minute to introduce myself and my co-presenter. I'm Stacy Avery. I'm the Director of Post-Secondary Preparation Programs here at TEA, and I'll let Crystal introduce herself.
Good morning. My name is Crystal Garza, and I'm the statewide coordinator of college and career readiness school models, working particularly with TEAP-TECH.
So a few logistical notes as we go through today and a question sparks in your mind or a comment, please feel free to go ahead and enter that in the Q&A. We'll conduct question and answers at the end. We'll also follow up with the slides and recording, and all the materials will be posted on the TEA website. So our agenda today is I'm going to do a quick recap of what is TCLAS, just to ground us all on the same page. And then we're going to go into a deep dive on the decision points for TEAP-TECH, and then have the next step question and answers. So first of all, what is TCLAS? So TCLAS stands for the Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Supports. And what that is a one single streamlined application to simplify the application process for a variety of grants that TEA is administering. We will do the calculations on the back end. And as we go through TCLAS, and as your district looks at all of the different decision points in TCLAS, you need to ask yourself, what needs are we trying to meet, and which of these supports will help us meet those needs? Next slide. So as I mentioned, TCLAS provides districts access to over $1.4 billion in services and supports. There are 15 different customized decisions within TCLAS, and it's all done through one application. So the different strategies in TCLAS are shown on this screen. You can see that we have the 5 learning acceleration strategies in strategic planning, instructional materials, teacher pipelines, additional time, and innovative school models. Under each of these 5 learning acceleration strategies, there are 10 different decision points. And below those decision points, you can see some similar TEA initiatives. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So the decision point that we're going to spend time talking about today is P-TECH and the different options under the P-TECH TCLAS funding. To give you some background on the timeline, the 3 decisions that Crystal's going to talk about here in a minute are P-TECH planning and implementation grants, and this timeline shows you for that process, there will be a planning period and an implementation period, the P-TECH success grants that are offered, and the dual credit faculty expansion grants that will be offered. Now we're going to move into the P-TECH deep dive, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Crystal Garza.
Again, good morning. I saw a lot of really familiar districts and some of our partners here on the call today, and a couple of newer districts and campuses and faces. So I'm going to go ahead and provide a little bit of a general overview for P-TECH as a whole, how it connects to our greater CCRSM initiative, and then of course tie it to TCLAS specifically in the funding that we're offering. So again, general overview of P-TECH to give you a better picture of where Decision 9 for P-TECH fits into the current initiatives. P-TECH is currently connected to the greater TEA strategic plan through priority 3, connecting high school to career and college. So these innovative school models are definitely focused on the high school students and their pathway through high school to career and college. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is how it aligns to TCLAS in general. So at its core, P-TECH has always strived to provide students with smooth transitional experiences from post-secondary through the workforce while offering tuition-free college classes. So there's always that mirroring of and marriage of institutions of higher education and business and industry partners, which we'll go over today for our P-TECH initiatives, and the opportunity to earn up to 60 college credit hours, industry certification, and or an associate degree while attending high school. So we want to make sure that you understand what the different TCLAS supports will be. So in 9A, connecting this again to that guiding document that you can find on the web, the first support is P-TECH network planning and implementation. This might sound a little bit familiar to anybody who's already been in our network and maybe received a previous grant. This support is particularly for new P-TECH campuses. So if you're applying for this particular support, that means that you are attempting to launch an entirely new P-TECH campuses. And some of the supports that you will receive from TEA is technical assistance, opportunities for convening, professional development, the resources, targeted coaching, and communities of practice. So again, 9A is particularly for those who are trying to establish a new P-TECH campus. 9B is our P-TECH success. So that might also sound a little bit familiar for some of us on the line that have been in the P-TECH network for a while. That means that you'll be expanding the current P-TECH practices of your campus. So the intention of that is expanding the best practices outlined from the blueprint. So of course, if you're already in the network, you're familiar with our blueprint and how you can support additional students. So that support will look like customized technical assistance, convenings, P-TECH resources, communities of practice, and of course, intentional coaching on that part. So main audience for that, of course, are people that are already within our P-TECH network. The final support stream for the TCLAS Decision 9 is 9C dual credit faculty expansion grants. And the intention of this support is to increase high school educators to be credentialed to teach dual credit courses, because we know that there is a great need for great faculty secondary, post-secondary alignment for that dual credit. So again, we want to take a little bit of a deeper dive for the P-TECH Pathways in Technology Early College High Schools. Like I mentioned before, the purpose is to intentionally provide a transitional experience for students from high school to post-secondary education and employment. And like I mentioned, that high school, post-secondary and employment piece will be important when we talk about the requirements for having partners. So first and foremost, and this is taken from some legislative language that we'll quote in the next slide, you're going to be serving students who are at risk of dropping out within your district. So part of the reason why you want to have a good district to campus partnership is because you want to know who those students you should be targeting are. Open enrollment and no cost to students. So that's definitely emphasized across all of our models, but particularly in our P-TECH campuses. Opportunity to earn post-secondary credential and or business and industry certification. This is where that next bullet with an MOU with an institution of higher education comes into play very strongly. You're going to want to have a good partner to accomplish all of these pieces. The next piece is a memorandum of understanding with a business and industry partner. Because of some of the following bullets, you want to make sure that the alignment to your regional and workforce needs of the area are aligned to your P-TECH program that you're either establishing or that you're expanding on. So again, that planning, thinking about who your business and industry partner is going to be while you plan a campus, or who it's going to be as you expand out your P-TECH campus. Work-based learning at every grade level. Again, that goes hand in hand with your business and industry partner, as well as who your campus will potentially be to serve all of these students at every grade level with work-based learning. And providing up to 6 years to earn a high school diploma and certification and or post-secondary degree. And that goes back to legislation allowing P-TECH campuses in particular the opportunity to offer their services through a 5th or 6th year. So how it's connecting to high school, to college and career from our strategic priority number 3 for TEA. Again, on the left-hand side, you'll see the direct P-TECH legislation. You should be able to click on it once you receive these slides. So the big 3 partnerships. So currently on the line, I'm sure we have more school district partners than some of our other partners, but you all are at the center because you will come together to engage a college partner and an industry partner to create these P-TECH campuses. Again, emphasizing that open enrollment and no cost to students, because we want to make sure that the students, as they're going through their high school and post-secondary adventures, they're not thinking about the burden of cost of what all of these services are. And then again, ultimately providing students the tuition-free college classes and work-based training, and providing them with the opportunity to earn 60 hours of college credit, an industry certification, and an associate degree while attending high school. For any of our new potential P-TECH planning applicants, it's a lot of information, a lot of partnership pieces that go into it. And so keep this in mind as you're thinking through you're applying, but also upon receival of the grant, you do get excellent coaching to be able to lay out the foundation for this over the 2 years, and we'll get to that timeline. Some more program fundamentals. Again, it takes a community to put together these P-TECH programs, and emphasizing that they are pathways from high school to employment. So what do those partnerships look like? So the first being that workforce partnership, because we're asking that you align the pathways that you're intending to put forth through these P-TECH campuses for your students to the regional workforce needs. We're also making sure that you have some sort of documentation and understanding with your business and industry partner, and that they understand where applicable that the students could have the opportunity for first priority interviewing. And again, that's about building the pipeline into what the local region needs in terms of building capacity for the workforce, right? And of course, requiring work-based learning at every grade level so that students can be familiar with what work should be looking like, particularly within the region. It all goes back to that and that community mentality. The second partnership, as I've been mentioning, is that higher education partnership, that attainment of these college credits. So an understanding with an institution of higher education for dual credit courses. Again, these are components that you'll be building throughout your planning year before you're serving students, but it's definitely good to be thinking about these things as you're filling out your application. Earning college credit and requiring an opportunity for students to earn post-secondary credentials or industry certification, associate degree level 1, level 2. For any of our campuses that might not be in the network already, but offer CTE dual credit, you're going to be definitely familiar with some of the opportunities for students. So some of the bigger picture benefits that you receive as a P-TECH campus, like we mentioned, is a very robust technical assistance program provided through our technical assistance provider. Our P-TECH campuses are required to work with our TEA assigned technical assistance provider and participate in these services. Coaching and consulting, you'll be working one-on-one with your coaches to make sure that you're on track in alignment with the blueprint. It's a pretty big document, so we make sure that you're covered with having some one-on-one time with coaches that are very familiar with the program. Peer-to-peer collaboration, so putting together opportunities for mentorship so you can learn from your peers, because we know that's beneficial. Professional development convenings and meetings, so a larger scale regional think tanks and opportunities for you to learn also from our technical assistance provider and from others, as well as generally a large summit in the summer for all kinds of minds to think and come together and collaborate across the state. Site visits to the particular campus that you're building, and feedback and support ultimately, because as you're building out almost like a new campus with new opportunities, you're going to want that support from providers that understand and know how to run these programs. Additional funding, excuse me, includes HB3. Currently, we have $50 per student while you're serving students. So we'll get into the timeline once we get to the different P-TECH support streams. But $50 per student based off of an indicator that we do place on P-TECH students in particular when you're serving students. And a couple of these, actually all of these HB3 pertain particularly when you start serving students. So as we're thinking through the amount of time you're being supported with this particular grant, you will also have the additional funding. And it's good to think about these additional funding pieces after the grant TCLAS. So the next one is the weighted funding for CTE and technology application courses, making sure that your P-TECH campuses that you are putting together are aligned to our CTE programs of study. And again, we work with you all on that to make sure. Industry-based certification reimbursement, the HB3 reimbursements that you all are more than likely familiar with if you work at the district level, and college preparation examination reimbursements, particularly for 11th and 12th grade students as you're building out these models. The P-TECH blueprint. So I've mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, so I want to make sure that anyone interested that is newer to the P-TECH model understands what our blueprint is. It is our overall guiding document that helps our campuses ensure fidelity and implementation of what the model is intended to do. Again, connecting high school to post-secondary opportunities like college and career. Our blueprint is made up of 6 benchmarks: school design, target population, strategic alliances, curriculum instruction and assessment, work-based learning, and student support. So we're going to go over in the next slide a little bit deeper of a description so you can understand. Those are the high-level benchmarks. And at the end of our blueprint, we have something we call outcomes-based measures, which are intended for us to have more of a data-minded conversation about the health of the campus and how we can continuously improve. And those fall back to access, where we're looking a little bit more of the health of the district to campus ratio and which students are being recruited intentionally. Achievement, which focuses a little bit more on the achievements of the student in terms of testing, coursework, and pieces more a little bit aligned to that component, and attainment, which is a little bit more aligned to the attainment of certain goals and earning college credit and certifications of the student. So taking a little bit of a deeper dive into the design elements of the P-TECH blueprint, like I mentioned, school design, that at a higher level focuses more on the open enrollment, flexible scheduling, and professional development of your campus. So thinking about particularly how are you working to focus a little bit more on the courses that you're offering and those teachers and how they're supported through professional development to understand what P-TECH is. And that there's also a component for how the dual credit faculty piece comes into play in that design element as well. Target population, which is very directly correlated to access, where we're thinking about recruitment. How are you getting students into your P-TECH? Maybe it's your whole middle school is moving into your whole high school, or you're creating a high school with this opportunity. Who are those students going to be? How are you going to support them through the admission process? And will that look differently for a P-TECH campus that might be within a regular school and it's just a small learning community? And how will you help them enroll not just in secondary, but also at a community college or university level? Strategic alliances goes back to what we've definitely been emphasizing for your partnerships, and it speaks to what should be in a memorandum of understanding with your institution of higher education and an MOU with your business and industry partner. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment speaks more to the courses of study that are going to enable the post-secondary outcomes. So a little bit on the attainment OBM side, such as how you're planning for stackable credentials or an associate degree or a certificate or a separate industry-based certification for what you're planning to offer. Work-based learning speaks to the experiences that you're providing at every grade level, and how you're interacting with that business and industry partner to go ahead and achieve that. And student support is about providing the wraparound strategies and services that you're going to be providing. And like I like to tell a lot of campuses, how are you going to supplement the already great work that you're doing with extra strategies and services that you're already offering, whether it be academic or social emotional learning? So some of the recommended activities, we wanted to highlight some typical P-TECH activities that we tend to see for planning versus when you're implementing with students at a yearly cost consideration, because we know that through this grant opportunity, you're going to have to be thinking through how you would use this money for the budgeting portion of this. So some of the pieces for planning that we typically see fall under equipment and materials, some specialized equipment. I'm going to read off a couple of them. Supplies and materials I typically see if you're starting a computer information technology emphasis, computers and mobile devices. If it's a little bit more tied to something more technical, building retrofits might be appropriate. Personnel. While you're in your planning, you may be thinking that you need to recruit more faculty and staff than you have. And once you do have those pieces in place, having professional development so they can understand what the vision is for your particular campus, and hiring some liaisons, whether that be for secondary or allotting that to some sort of supplementary personnel pieces that you have with your partnerships. And outreach overall. We do see a lot of campuses think about the student recruitment piece and the community outreach components during their planning years. When you begin serving students, your implementation years, these are some yearly cost considerations to think about. Maybe you're not buying equipment and materials at such a big volume, but there are some supplies and materials that definitely need to be replenished while you start serving students, and maybe some technical things that you need to spruce up once those equipment and materials are no longer able, they need to be just, bought again. For personnel, you see that you're going to be in a cycle of recruiting more teachers as you start serving more grade levels, staffing costs overall, extra duty pay, because it'll be for some of the planning and implementation, it'll be some of the first times that you all start serving students. Outreach is the same. You're going to keep recruiting more students into your program. And one of the key differences is what you'll be paying for dual credit and student services, where you're going to have to start thinking about tuition and fees. Textbooks are going to be a really big one, instructor costs, certifications and licensing fees once your students are eligible to take those, and transportation when you figure out a rhythm for what you're going to be, when you're going to be on campus for the IHE or not. So we wanted to make sure to give you some CCRSM and P-TECH web resources. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the TCLAS specific pieces, but this will be available online. So for P-TECH planning and implementation 9A, and again, this is referenced in your guidance document on the TEA website, some of the requirements for the P-TECH planning. So the requirements are: identify the new P-TECH campus that you're intending to start within your district. We do have a maximum of 3 per district. You want to identify which institution of higher education and business and industry partner you will be working with. These are questions in the TCLAS application. And identify the career cluster based on the regional economic need that you are seeking to start up this new P-TECH planning campus. For our timeline, you will begin planning with our technical assistance provider upon receipt of this grant, beginning in late fall 2021, and implementing with students strictly in 2023, 2024. I believe we have a slide for the timeline, but you will be in planning for about 2 years. For the award calculation, $400,000 is the maximum proposed P-TECH planning campus for the life of the grant. So for between 2021 to 2024, the $400,000 should be spread out throughout 21, 22, 22, 23 when you will be in planning, and 23, 24 when you will ultimately be implementing with students. So some of the specific purposes of a P-TECH planning and implementation campus and how you'll be serving students. We're supporting eligible campuses to plan and establish the foundational elements of a P-TECH program. We're engaging in planning and support with the TEA provided technical assistance provider. So we're building those partnerships with an IHE, a business and industry partner. You should be identifying which regional labor market needs you're trying to meet, identifying the career cluster and program of study, and your plan for student services, including work-based learning at every grade level. And ultimately, you'll be serving P-TECH students in 23, 24, like I mentioned. Some key assurances, we picked out some of the highlights, but again, referencing that guidance document, you're going to want to make sure to read all of them, but these are the high level key assurances that we've highlighted. You're going to participate in the planning year, which would be 21, 22 and 22, 23 school years, making it roughly about 24 months that you will be planning to launch this particular campus. You will apply upon receipt of the grant, you will apply through Texas CCRSM designation.org to help us collect information for the 22-23 planning application. And again, this goes back to providing the best technical assistance that we can to make sure that we collect enough information on what the intent of you opening the P-TECH campuses will be, so we can further help you get to your goals. Again, working with that technical assistance provider during the grant period, which would be 21 through 24, P-TECH grantees will be asked to self-evaluate and provide feedback throughout the grant. And this is something typical of our network. We want to make sure periodically throughout the time that you're with us that we understand what you need assistance with. And that's the biggest piece of it, is that we need to know how you're doing so we can help you succeed. The P-TECH campuses will adhere to the legislative language set in statute for P-TECH programming. We will have that linked in the PDF so you can better understand it. But again, everything in our blueprint is legislatively aligned for your convenience so you can understand in a more packaged area what the expectations are. And serving students in grades 9 through 12 or will begin serving students in grade 9 or in grades 9 and 10 in the first year of implementation, so that 23-24 year. So this line is to make sure that you're going to at least serve students in grade 9. We understand that there's a lot of very excited people that want to make sure to offer it to maybe grades 9 and 10 in the first year, but we want to make sure that this is a high school program first and foremost, and that you will be serving students in grade 9 in the first year of implementation. For the P-TECH planning and implementation timeline, I'm going to go over these a little bit quicker. For the TCLAS grant process, we're currently have some of the guiding documents open. We are planning on opening these applications very soon, July 19th through August 20th, 2021, with the intention to award in September 2021 and December 2021, with the intention to provide NOGAs out to the awardees. So this is a typical timeline for our P-TECH planning and implementation for anybody that enters into our network. Again, once you receive the grant, we will send you reminders on when we need certain assurances, such as the planning year application. Again, noting that technical assistance will be throughout the 24 months of planning, which would be September 2021 through September 2023, particularly emphasizing on planning and putting all those pieces in motion. For P-TECH implementation, again, some small reminders of some of the application processes that we have. Once you're a P-TECH campus, you're going to start recruiting your first cohort in 2023 to provide services, Summer Bridge, which is another tradition within the P-TECH campuses, and ultimately serving your students in the first cohort in 23-24 academic year. For 24-25, we're having the ending of the TCLAS grant summer 2024, where it will reach the completion for that funding. For P-TECH success, the requirements would be you have to be an existing P-TECH campus for programming, and this includes if you are an existing P-TECH planning campus currently. The maximum is 5 per district. We have some ongoing support with an IHE partner and a business and industry partner. Again, these are the questions particularly aligned in the TCLAS application, and you intend to expand the existing P-TECH opportunities based on the P-TECH blueprint. Some timeline pieces, you will be intending to plan and implement for whatever expanding pathways or services that you're offering to your student. And you're intending to increase the student enrollment in your P-TECH campus for new and existing pathways through the end of the grant, which would be the summer of 2024. For the award calculation, $200,000 per proposed existing P-TECH campus, including planning campuses currently in the 21-22 school year, will be through the life of the grant from 21 to 24. Some specific purposes for P-TECH success. Again, the expansion is the key of current practices of the P-TECH blueprint. So anybody in the network currently, you need to be thinking about increasing the opportunities and the number of students served in the program. You'll be engaging in 24 months of expansion. So again, collaborating with the partners that you have and are reporting in the TCLAS application, and expanding the support, whether it be with a new business and industry partner because it's a new pathway, but definitely outlining that, or planned expansion for student services like work-based learning at every grade level. And we want to make sure that for students, you're serving P-TECH students through the expanded opportunities that you're proposing. Some key assurances, again, key is definitely the word. Make sure that you're looking back at that guiding document to make sure that you and your district are able to hit the components that you need. Be a TEA designated campus in planning, provisional, or designation in the 21-22 school year. So if you did receive a notification from us that you were in that phase, then you should be good and eligible to apply. Continue working with a TEA technical assistance provider. Maintain your partnerships that you have with your IHE. At this point, most of you should have a written agreement, exception being planning. Maintaining established partnerships with employer defined in a written agreement. Apply through our designation process that we have set up every year. Adhere to legislative language set in statute for P-TECH, again, going back to what's in the P-TECH blueprint, and continuing to implement the design elements and meet the outcomes-based measures of the P-TECH blueprint itself. Timeline at the front end is very similar for each P-TECH Decision 9 grantee. So documents have been released. The applications will be opening very soon. Awards will be announced in September, and the NOGAs will be issued around December. Making sure that you know for the technical assistance support for September 2021 through 2022, this goes a little bit more by the fiscal year, the academic year, so you can see that you will be getting at least 2 solid years continued of extra P-TECH support through the end of the TCLAS grant. I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Stacy to speak to the dual credit faculty expansion.
Great, thanks, Crystal. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So the dual credit faculty expansion grant is open to any current TEA designated planning, provisional, or designated campus in the 2021 school year, in the 21-22 school year. So you also cannot be a recipient of the expansion of dual credit faculty grant for CCRSM that we just announced last month. The timeline for this grant is in the fall of 21. Once the award is announced, you will collaborate and decide on your 4-year university partner to decide that accelerated credentialing program and partner with your dual credit provider to determine what those hiring requirements are. This grant requires a partnership, we kind of call it a triad, between the school district, the 4-year university to provide the graduate coursework for educators, and the dual credit provider to agree to hire those educators once they are credentialed with the appropriate coursework. During the fall of 2021, you're also going to need to recruit and identify teachers for participation. The expectation is that in January of 22 through the summer of 24, educators are completing that graduate coursework so they can be credentialed to teach dual credit courses. And once they complete that coursework, then actually begin offering those courses at the high school campus. This award calculation is a max of $25,000 per teacher with a max of $200,000 per campus. And if a district wants to have more than one campus, again, you have to adhere to that $25,000 max per teacher with a max of $499,000 per district. And we are giving priority for districts serving less than 1,800 students. So Crystal, if you want to go to the next slide. So the purpose of the dual credit faculty expansion grants is to increase the number of high school educators eligible to teach those academic dual credit courses at our existing college and career readiness school model campuses. So if you qualify for 9B, you also qualify for 9C. This again is only for campuses that are already a college and career readiness school model, whether they are planning, whether they are early college, an existing P-TECH, not a new P-TECH from 9A, but an existing P-TECH, or an existing T-STEM academy. Again, identifying and recruiting those high school educators who are able and willing to teach dual credit courses once they have those credentials. Those teachers who participate have to commit to complete the SACS SOC requirements and any requirements that dual credit provider may have. The minimum SACS requirements are a master's degree in the subject area. So if you're going to teach dual credit math, you have to have a master's degree in math Or if you have a master's degree in another area, then you have to have 18 graduate hours in the subject area, so in math. Part of this also is the district really identifying their need. And in the guidance document, we have some guiding questions to think through to determine if this decision is right for your district. What is your need for dual credit courses? Where do you lack educators with the credentials to teach those dual credit courses? The other part of this is to establish and strengthen that partnership with a four-year university to develop that accelerated credentialing program for graduate coursework for these teachers, and establish or strengthen that partnership with your dual credit provider that will then agree to hire that teacher to teach dual credit once they meet those credentialing requirements. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So here are some key assurances that we have listed in that guidance document. The districts will have to come up with some kind of an agreement with the teachers that not only will they complete the credentialing requirements, but they will teach at the campus during all 3 years of the grant. Identify your course needs aligned with your dual credit coursework, and that's going to be in partnership with your two-year provider. Design that program with both your dual credit provider and your four-year university so that teachers can successfully complete those credentialing requirements. Again, your budget is your maximum of $25,000 per teacher for expenses such as tuition, fees, travel during the life of the grant. Any additional cost or the responsibility of the LEA or the participant upon that local agreement. So really having a strong local agreement with the teachers to say, here's what we'll cover, here's what you may have to cover, and being really clear and transparent up front. And that the teacher that participates has a successful completion as defined as an average of 75% or higher in each graduate level course. And then all expenses related are eligible for reimbursement from TEA upon successful completion of the courses per term. Crystal, you want to go ahead and go to the next slide for me? So here's the timeline. As you know, as we mentioned with the other, you'll be notified of the grant award in September, and then TEA will work to NOGA your grants by December. So if you want to expend any funds before the NOGA, in most cases, you'll have to ask for board approval to do that, because I do believe pre-award costs will be back to a certain date. And then in the fall, we've listed out all the different types of activities that would have to occur, including identifying your needs, recruiting those educators, getting that agreement with your educators, determining that graduate coursework, securing those MOUs with both your dual credit provider and your university partner, moving into January 22 through July of 24, completing that graduate coursework, having the district support the educators to complete, figuring out your sustainability plan. How are we going to keep this in motion even after the grant funds? Launch your new dual credit courses. We anticipate that districts will have some teachers who need the full master's degree. In many cases, they have teachers who already have a master's degree and just need those 18 hours. Some districts have teachers who are just a few hours short of those 18 hours. So depending on when the teacher is credentialed, depends on when you could start your dual credit courses. And then the TCLAS grant ends in summer of 2024. You want to go to the next slide, Crystal? So we have question and answer, and we have quite a few questions in here. So I'm going to throw some questions to Crystal to go ahead and answer. So I want to start with questions around 9A, Crystal, the P-TECH planning and implementation. Does P-TECH planning and implementation require a principal that is not a principal of a regular high school campus if they are offering a school within a school model?
So we do see quite a bit that Some campuses will employ the services of, for instance, an assistant principal to be what we call the building level leader. So as long as you have assigned someone that is a building level leader that can make decisions in terms of partnerships, has a say in funding pieces, that's absolutely allowed. They don't need to be the main principal. It all goes back to how your district has it structured from a local decision standpoint. So if you're, for instance, your board says that you can have your assistant principal be the building level leader at the TEAP-TECH level, that's perfectly okay.
Thanks, Crystal. The next question is, do we have to be early college designated to go through the P-TECH application process? So do they have to be designated with something else in order to become a P-TECH, or can they just figure out they want to become a P-TECH and start the process?
Yeah, if you want to, if you have no affiliation with the CCRSM network, if you're not already early college TSTEM or P-TECH, you can absolutely apply for a P-TECH planning and implementation grant. There's no prerequisite that you have to already be affiliated. In fact, we definitely welcome new districts and members that are feeling that they're already at the point where they can start this journey of implementing a campus.
Crystal, our next question, and it goes back to the slide you shared on the different activities that we see in planning and implementation.
Mm-hmm.
What can we spend 9A funds on? Is there a required amount that must go to the partner organization with P-TECH planning? Can we find a position in the district? So that's kind of a multi-part question. Is there a required amount that must go to a partner? And can we fund a position in the district to lead the P-TECH planning?
So I'm going to answer the second one first. You can absolutely fund a new position to support P-TECH, but we want to make sure that you are supplementing your services and not supplanting your services. So anybody on your grants team or your business office will be more than happy to explain the differences, but you can absolutely fund a new P-TECH coordinator, director position, counselor position. That's absolutely doable. So while you're thinking about for planning and implementation, it's split between 2 years of purchasing items for planning, like we have here on the X's on the screen. And then the 1 year that you begin serving students is a little bit of a different ball game. So what I've seen typically with planning campuses is that there's a lot of personnel pieces, because you want to hire a director, you want to hire a counselor, coordinator to start doing the work immediately and start planning. So I've seen that. Definitely purchasing specialized equipment ahead of time. You want to make sure that it's specifically for when you're serving the students as opposed to using it immediately. And the supplies and materials are relevant to the P-TECH campus that you're opening. And definitely a lot of student recruitment pieces that I've seen, as well as curriculum mapping and reverse design, sending some of the staff that you're bringing on for your leadership team to make this campus, and sending them out so that they can get the professional development they need to start serving your students once you do in 23-24. So any of these items here should be allowable. Overall, in the FAQs, we will be answering them and putting them out. We'll put a little bit more examples of what can be and what has been done in the past, so you have a better sense of what's allowable and allowable. But this chart, which you'll have access to, is a great example. What's the next question?
So Crystal, we've got about 9 more minutes because another webinar is starting right after ours. So if we don't get to your question, it will be addressed in the FAQ. This is a really important question. Is it believed that the 9A funding should cover 100% of the cost of starting a P-TECH program at the campus?
I think it definitely varies district by district. So I want to say that it will cover the majority of the costs for a P-TECH campus in general. But as you're building out your P-TECH campus, you want to think long-term sustainability, which is why we brought up the HB3 additional funding and how you can further support the campus growing. But I do think that there are some that you are going to rely on a mix of the P-TECH funding that you would potentially get through TCLAS and some of the district support that you could be getting at the offset. It just really varies. In the past, we have given out grants where some school districts have taken up the burden of some of the cost. So it just comes back to the local decision of it. $400,000 is quite a large chunk of change to dedicate to the P-TECH campus. So I will say that a majority of it will probably go to that. But if you'll see, equipment, materials, personnel, and outreach don't always make up the whole makeup of what a campus is and what it should look like. You might not be able to hire all the staff you want to out of the budget for TCLAS. So this is an important consideration for you all to think of, and why district and community support is such a big buy-in, because after the grant, you want to sustain the campus. And with this money, you can kickstart it knowing that you don't have to cover the burden of the entirety of the cost, if that makes sense. I don't know if you want to add any more, Stacy.
Yeah, I think what you said is right on, Crystal. The intent is not that it covers 100%, because based on what your pathway is, you may have really heavy equipment cost. And also depending on what you work out with your dual credit provider in terms of tuition, fees, those kind of things for implementation year, you'll have to look at your ADA, you'll have to look at your CTE funding, just a variety. And that's what the planning year is for. I also want to, I'm going to do one more question, but then I also want to say, we have office hours that are going to be held, and we would love to have you come. And I know several people have several questions. We would love to talk those through with you in the office hours. So please take advantage of those, because these are really great questions. We'll also include them in the FAQ. So Crystal, the last question, and then we're going to finish up with the TCLAS slides. Can the IHE partner be a private institution, for-profit institution, or does it have to be a public IHE?
There's no stipulation to who your IHE partner needs to be at all. We've seen quite a bit of different partners, and we've also seen campuses with multiple partners. So as you're completing the application, and let's say you have multiple partners that you're thinking of reaching out to, put that primary IHE partner, and again, if once you receive the grant, we'll work with you to figure out who the web of stakeholders are for you, but there's no stipulation if it's private or not.
Yeah. The only thing I would say to consider, particularly if students may be going on after they graduate from high school, is what about the transfer of any academic courses? You'll want to make sure they are an accredited IHE by one of the regional accrediting institutions. And if they are taking any academic dual credit towards graduation, our administrative code says they do have to be accredited by one of the regional accrediting entities for IHEs. So as we finish up, thank you all so much for attending. Lots of questions we didn't get to. We will produce an FAQ, and we will also be available during office hours to answer these questions. Please note, the application will open next week on the 19th of July, and the application will close on August 20th. So please make your decisions now, think through, read that guidance document. All the information that you will submit for decision 9 is outlined in the guidance document. So you can go back and really be prepped and have that information at hand when you decide to apply. There are many application components. The guidance document, there's a budget calculator. Our budget is pretty straightforward. Any new P-TECH is $400,000. Any success, meaning an existing campus, not a new one that's coming in through TCLAS, any existing P-TECH, early college, or T-STEM is $200,000. And then $25,000 per teacher for dual credit faculty expansion, $200,000 campus max, $499,000 for district max. If you want to go to the next slide, Crystal. There are the webinar we just did, and then our TCLAS office hours. So if you go to the TCLAS website, and the link will be here, and you can get to it by going to TEA, going to the COVID response, and then going to instructional continuity, and you'll see a TCLAS link, or as Andrew likes to say, just Google TCLAS and the TEA webpage will come up. We'll post the recording, the webinars, the office hours will be listed there, and Crystal and I will be there and would love to talk with you. These are the remaining webinars that are happening. We have a few more happening, one more happening today, I think. And then that's it. We'll have all the recordings posted. If you have a minute, please let us know if you're interested in applying for TCLAS. This will kind of give us some information that will be critical moving forward to kind of know what the interest is. We hope you found this webinar in TEAP-TECH really informational. And if you have questions, on the next slide, I believe, we have there's our web address. So if you have specific TEAP-TECH questions, go ahead and send them to TEAP-TECH. If you have specific TCLAS questions, go ahead and send them to TCLAS. Again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you. And we hope that you will consider Decision 9. We'd love to have more TEAP-TECHs in the network and have TEAP-TECH success and working to get those teachers credentialed to teach dual credit. Thank you so much.